Welcome, everyone. It's just a little bit after 12, so we'll go ahead and get started. It's great to see everybody, new faces and people that are here every single month. We like to see everybody. It's been a nice day out. I think the last few times when I've spoken, it's been bad weather, but it's very nice out, if not a little too warm. I'm Christopher Davidson, State Archivist and Assistant Vice Chancellor with the University System over the Georgia Archives and the State Record Center. So I'm happy to welcome you all to our monthly Lunch and Learn lecture series. Our monthly Lunch and Learn programs are sponsored by the Friends of Georgia Archives and History. Thank you to FOGA. FOGA has a fairly new brochure. I think it's on the back table. And there's also a donation box back there if you're interested in donating to FOGA or learning more about FOGA and their membership opportunities. Check that out. They have a Christmas ornament that's for sale. And so there's information in the brochure of how you can get the ornament. They also have some older ornaments if you'd like to get one that you're missing from your collection. There's also a donate button on our homepage if you'd like to donate directly to the Georgia Archives, georgiaarchives.org. Also encourage you to visit the website and see all the information that we have there about events. Currently, there's no exhibit open. It just went dark, but we will be having an exhibit soon on churches. At this time, we don't have anything more specific about that, but just be on the lookout. It'll be opening in a few weeks, and it'll be open for a couple months. If you want to go into reference to research or look around to see what we have and do not have a researcher's card, please go to the welcome desk at the front and sign up. The card is free and it's good for 5 years, but you'll need that before you can go to the back to do research. Just as a reminder, we're closed over the lunch hour in reference from 12 to 1 each day. So reference is currently open from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. And we encourage you to research with us. Our archivists are happy to work with you. If you've never done any research before, they're happy to get you started, walk you through the steps, and help you along. We're happy to welcome our speaker and our new Outreach Archivist, Robin Klemm. First, before we get to her, we're going to have a door prize. We have our Vanishing Georgia, which has images from our collection, and we'll give one of these away now. Don't win, it's Robin's fault.
I'm so sorry.
The last 3 numbers are 803. 803.
Wait a minute.
I'll give you a minute.
Mine's 802. She was right behind me. Okay. Well, that's good.
That's for her. I made 04.
Okay.
You came in after? Yep. Yeah.
803.
Yep. There she better work. She goes.
Yes.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
My sister's alive.
Okay, very good. So if you'd like to see these images on our website, you can go to the Vanishing Georgia collection and search on various topics. Every time I give a presentation somewhere, I'll look in that locality or county, find an image, and be able to talk about it. So it's a wonderful tool that we have. Robin Klemm is a recent graduate from the University of Alabama's Master of Library and Information Studies program, where she developed a keen interest in the convergence of archives, modern technology, and outreach. Within the past year, she has had the opportunity to intern at esteemed institutions like the Rome Area History Center and at NASA's archives, further fueling her passion for preserving and sharing historical materials. Eager to bridge the gap between emerging technologies and archival outreach, Robin has accepted the position of Outreach Archivist for the Georgia Archives. In her new role, she aims to leverage her research interest to promote and enhance access to the valuable resources held within the Georgia Archives. Welcome, Robin.
me. It's a great introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to Chris for that introduction. And I just want to thank every one of you for being here today, and for anybody that might be watching this on YouTube later, because we'll have it posted. I'm just so excited to be one of the newest members of the Georgia Archives family. As the newly appointed Outreach Archivist, I'm deeply honored and humbled by this opportunity to begin this journey with everyone, preserving the past and forging connections with the present and the future. As I know most of you are already well aware, the Georgia Archives is not just a repository of dusty documents and fading photographs. It's a treasure trove of the state's rich and diverse history. It's a living testament to the people and the events and the stories that have really shaped our society. This stands as a beacon, illuminating the path to our collective heritage and our cultural identity. Every document, every photograph, every artifact that's housed within these walls represents a puzzle piece that, when they're put together, I think reveal a mosaic of our shared human experience. Outreach Archivist, I'm eager to bridge the gap between the archives and the communities that the archives serve. It's my mission to a deeper appreciation of the past and really connecting individuals to unearth their own histories and to connect with the larger story of Georgia's history and Georgia's past. I aim to support the archives in its endeavor to be more than just a repository, towards being a dynamic center of education and inspiration and of discovery. Through innovative outreach programs and engaging exhibitions and collaborative partnerships, we'll continue to unlock the archive's potential to spark curiosity, encourage research, and to foster a greater sense of pride in our cultural heritage. I'm committed to ensuring that the stories of the past are not confined to these shelves, but that they are shared and celebrated throughout the communities that call Georgia home. Our history is not merely a relic of the past, it's a guiding light that can inspire us to build a brighter and more inclusive future. I invite each of you to join me on this journey as we delve into the heart of Georgia's past, exploring the depths of its history and celebrating the diversity and the richness of our shared heritage. Together, I hope we will embark on a grand adventure, one that will be full of collaboration and creativity, and that's going to leave a mark on the story that is Georgia's history for generations to come. And so with all of that being said, I wanted to start in the town that I've called home for the past 20 plus years, Rome, Georgia. During my MLIS program at the University of Alabama, I had the honor to intern at the Rome Area History Center, and I'm going to tell you about the center past, present, and future. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the city of Rome itself. I just want to preface all of this by saying I didn't really mean for this to be a promo for the Rome Area Tourism Board, but I think it may end up being that. So we'll just call it a love letter to Rome. So Rome sits in Northwest Georgia at the confluence of the Etowah and the Oostenaula rivers. Together, those rivers form the Coosa River, and those waters eventually flow out into Mobile Bay, Alabama, and then, of course, the Gulf of Mexico. Several Native American tribes have been stewards of that land, from the Creek Indians that originally settled there and then migrated west towards Gadsden, Alabama, and then to the Cherokee Indians that settled there in about the mid-18th century. So the city was founded in 1834, the city as we know it today, which was just after the Indian Removal Act of 1830. There are probably as many stories about how the city of Rome got its name as there are people that you might ask. But I think my favorite story is that it was just literally pulled out of a hat, because that just seems so efficient and so simple. But the name of Rome was chosen because it's surrounded by 7 hills, much like its sister city of Rome, Italy. The area, because of where it's located and on the 3 rivers, really became a hub for steel and textile industries. Steamboats could be seen floating up and down those rivers very often. And there are a lot of old textile mills. They're still standing, but most of them are closed today. In fact, I lived in a small unincorporated section of town just south of the city of Rome called Lindale, and there's a huge mill there called Pepperell Mill. It's beautiful. It kind of, towers over Lindale. You can't miss it. But it's a wedding venue today. It's a beautiful wedding venue. But it closed in the mid-90s. And of course, like most of Georgia's cities, manufacturing, rail lines, and infrastructure were destroyed by Sherman near the end of the Civil War. But during Reconstruction and afterwards, the city really continued to grow despite having issues with flooding. So as you can imagine, they're on the Three Rivers. It's very flood prone. The city ended up building a levee system downtown, which has been very effective in preventing flooding of the downtown area. But as you can imagine, outlying areas still flood pretty heavily today. You can see that if you go out to Berry College pretty easily. And I'll talk about Berry in just a second. But you can see that once it rains heavily, the plains around Berry flood very easily. And then, like I mentioned before, most if not all of its textile mills have closed by this point. Currently today, though, it has an approximate population of about 37,000 people, and the city is really focused on developing the downtown area into a destination location with lots of things to do and outdoor open spaces. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I really love about Rome and hopefully encourage you to visit. This first one up here at the top left is Rome's Labyrinth. It used to be an old erosion control pond that was built by the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s, but it was kind of redeveloped into this labyrinth that you see here today. It's behind Jackson Hill, which is one of Rome's 7 hills. And in the 60s and 70s, artists would go there to just read poetry and play music and enjoy that open space. The image right below that is the Capitoline Wolf, which is on the steps of City Hall in Rome. There's a lot of lore about how that statue came to the city, but ultimately it was a gift by the European city of Rome to Rome, Georgia. And the subject of it is Romulus and Remus, which is how the European city of Rome got its name in the first place. The image right below that is Berry College. So Berry is a beautiful campus. It was founded in 1902 by Martha Berry. And these are the Ford buildings that are on campus. Berry is the largest college campus in the world. It has hiking trails and paved paths. It's a beautiful, beautiful college campus. These buildings, the Ford buildings, were named after Henry Ford, who was a huge supporter of the college. And movies have been filmed there. I think the one that you guys would probably recommend or recognize the easiest is probably Remember the Titans. And but several movies have been filmed here in that location. The image right below that in the bottom left are paddle boarders on one of the local Rome rivers. So as you can see there, this river is wide and flat and calm, and throughout most of the year it stays that way. And so it's a great place for outdoor activities. There's kayaking, and there's a kayaking outpost in downtown Rome, so you can actually rent kayaks. Great place to do outdoor activities. The image in the middle is a part of Rome's paved walking paths that are downtown. There's 15 plus miles of paved, I keep wanting to say parking, of paved walking paths downtown. There's a lot of parking too, but there are paved paths. And 15 plus miles of these paths, they go along the rivers and into the parks that are in that area. And then I don't know if you can see, but there is a bridge in that image in the background. The same bridge that's in this image off to the right. That is the Robert Redden Footbridge. It's you can walk across it, and people have been putting locks on it, much like the tradition of the Paris Bridge, if you've heard of that before. And it was most recently featured in Marvel's Black Widow movie. So if you see that movie, it's near the beginning, along with several other Rome landmarks, and you can't miss. And then finally, down here at the bottom, this is Rome's clock tower. You'll see the clock tower on Rome's logos, on its merchandise. It's everywhere. And it kind of towers above the city. It's on Neely Hill, which is one of Rome's 7 hills. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the clock tower a little later when I talk about the Rome Area History Center and what they do as part of their outreach program and what they do for the community. All right, so again, so that's my little spiel about Rome. I highly recommend you visit. But I do want to move on to the main subject of my presentation, which is the Rome Area History Center. And we're going to talk about it past, present, and future. So the Rome Area History Center was founded in 1996, which I feel is really recent. I'm not going to give away my age, but I feel like the 90s were like 10 years ago. So if that gives you any idea. But again, I always found it really interesting that it was founded in the 90s because that whole area is just full of the cultural and the history of that area, that it took them until the 90s to really have a museum that focused on the whole surrounding area. There is another museum in the area called the Chieftains Museum. They focus on the preservation of Major Ridge's home. But the Rome Area History Center's mission really is to collect and preserve the history of Rome and Floyd County as a wider area. The museum was supported by the community, so the collection really grew rapidly at that time, and it's had to move locations a few times since it was founded. But in 2011, it landed in its final resting place. It's probably not the best way to say that. But it landed in its spot that it is today, which is the space of the former Floyd County Courthouse. And there's even a jail cell still in the bottom in the basement, which features heavily in tours, as you can probably imagine. Despite having a really strong foundation, though, management of the museum and the archive kind of fell by the wayside until it was determined that the city would take over management of the archive in 2020. So, of course, that's right at the start of COVID. And it's definitely had an impact on the museum and the center's ability to really get their feet underneath them and get running, but it hasn't stopped them by any means. So we'll talk about the Rome Area History Center in the present. So currently, as I mentioned before, the city manages the center, but it operates as a nonprofit 501c3 organization. So tax dollars do not go to support the museum. It really relies on donations and fundraisers to make sure operations continue seamlessly. And they made sure that admissions is free. So if you were to visit today, you would not have to pay to get in, which was very important for the center and the city. But because of that, they have to work together to really find funding in order to operate the center. And then we'll talk about some of that stuff a little bit more when I talk about outreach. For their management and staff, Selena Tilley is the center's director and its only full-time staff member. I will probably say this a few times throughout this presentation, but I am in awe of Ms. Tilley. She does everything. She creates programming, she creates exhibits, she gives tours. She's a font of knowledge of the Rome and Floyd County area and that in the history that's there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people walk up to her and just say, well, what about this building on Broad Street? And she just knows it. She doesn't have to really research much or look it up. She just knows everything. So she's an amazing resource for that community. But in addition to Ms. Tilley, there's 4 part-time employees that help to operate the center, including a part-time archivist, Tony Pope. And together they make sure that the center is up and running at all times. So the museum houses a variety of exhibits, including permanent displays that showcase Rome and Floyd County's history. They have an extensive display on steamboats. So you'll find large replicas of steamboats there. They have some of the pistons and inner workings of the steamboats that were found in maintenance yards at some point. And they have a display, a video display of what it might be like from the perspective of the steamboat traveling downriver with a steamboat wheel, which is always fun. Other permanent exhibits include a timeline of Roman history, a comprehensive history of Native American tribes that lived in that area, and then a section on military service from the Civil War to modern times. Now, there have been numerous short-term exhibits. I know they're really working towards having more permanent exhibits. I think one of the latest short-term ones they had was on first responders. But as they move towards more permanent exhibits, one that I know, if it's not premiered yet already, it should be coming soon, is one on the theater and arts and entertainment of the downtown area known as Opera Alley. They and events and special events throughout the year as outreach, including free tours to local schools. And again, I'll talk about that in a moment when we talk about outreach. I previously mentioned that the city and the center have to work together to find funding. And one of the ways that they do that is the second level of the Rome Area History Center. You can see the front of it on this side. I'll have a picture of it a little bit later. But the second level is an event space that they rent out. So they'll have weddings, parties, things like that the city rents out to help raise funds. Those funds go to help support the center. But that space is shared with the archive, which is also on the second floor. So the archive consists of 2 large rooms that is on that second level. Due to the previously mentioned, kind of disrepair of the center and the archive before 2020, it's not currently open to the public, but the staff are really assessing the collection to determine what it contains so that they can create an accessible archive for the community with clear organization and clear standards. Research requests, though, are accepted and filled by staff members so that you can get those research requests filled at the center. So I wanted to highlight some of the bigger collections that are housed at the Rome Area History Center and in that archive. The first one is the Dr. Robert Beatty collection. So Dr. Beatty settled in Rome after the Civil War, and his medical specialty was gynecology. So as you can probably imagine, not the most well understood field of medicine at that time after the Civil War. So he was the first doctor we know of to have performed a surgery called an oophorectomy, which is a fun word to say, but probably not a fun surgery to have. The first one was performed in 1869 to remove a cyst, but I think my favorite story about Dr. Beatty was a little bit later in his life, where he was going to have performed this surgery on a local woman whose name was Julie Omberg in 1872. And because the surgery and his methodologies were not really well understood at the time, a mob formed outside of her home where he was going to perform this surgery. If he had proved to be unsuccessful in his endeavor, I do believe they fully intended to do him harm if he was unsuccessful, but thankfully he was not, and Julie survived. She lived to be about 80 years old. And the extent and purpose of that particular surgery wasn't really well known at the time, but a lot of people today believe that it's really helped to perfect pelvic surgeries and has tied together the understanding that a woman's ovaries are tied to their menstrual cycle, which we now understand today. Dr. Beatty's collection includes materials like medical equipment and doctor's notes to daily logs that he kept at his practice. The second collection is the Frankie Welch collection. So Frankie Welch was a teacher turned fashion designer who was born in Rome in the 1920s. She's really mostly well known for her scarves and dresses that she designed for prominent political figures of the time, including First Lady Betty Ford. You can find some of her dresses in the U.S.'s most prestigious institutions, like the Smithsonian. So you can see here, this is Frankie Welch on the left with First Lady Betty Ford, one of her dresses being inducted to the Smithsonian and the director of the Smithsonian at that time. The collection at the Rome Area History Center includes scarves that she designed and documents like sketches and work orders for her business. And then the last one I wanted to mention was the Rufus Turner collection. So Rufus Turner, as recently as the beginning of this year, I think, the Miss Tilly and the center was able to obtain the Rufus Turner collection. Rufus Turner is a local Rome history buff, and he really focused his efforts on collecting information related to Rome and Floyd County's African American population. And at one time, he was the president of the African American Historical Society of Rome and Floyd County. So included in this collection is every copy of the newspaper that you see up there at the top, called the Rome Enterprise. It was a paper that was locally written and published by Thomas Atwater. It ran from the early 1900s to about the 1950s, and it covered a wide range of events for the Black community and was distributed nationwide. As far as the center is aware, there is no other comprehensive collection of this newspaper. They have the only one. However, a lot of the materials and newspaper are not in the best condition. These are probably the best that you see here on the screen. And so the center is really in the process of assessing that collection towards preserving the newspaper and other items that are held in that collection. So I wanted to speak a little bit about outreach and what the center does within the surrounding community. So they have a small staff, one full-time staff member and a few part-time staff members, but they participate in a variety of events throughout the year. And again, some of these are fundraisers, so they do rely on these heavily to kind of promote themselves and to get word out into the community about what they do and what they have on site. So throughout the year, Ms. Tilley provides tours to the center and to local school groups that will engage the community's K through 12 aged population in the history of that area. The tours have interactive elements that really help the students to focus, including the steamboat wheel that I mentioned earlier, and they do a lot of scavenger hunts within the museum and the exhibit so that students are engaged. I showed you guys the clock tower before. So Miss Tilley does tours of the clock tower. So it used to be an old water tower, and you can still see the inner workings of it today. It's hollow on the inside now. But on the lower level, there is a replica, or I think it's the older clock mechanism that used to be in the very top of the tower, that Miss Tilley will give you an idea of how the clock tower works and how the mechanism itself works. And there's also steps. You can take steps all the way to the top of the tower, which I highly recommend if you're in Rome and you're able to go to do the tour that you do, because it's an amazing view of the downtown area. You can see it all the way around. Of course, during the fall, the leaves are beautiful, so I highly recommend visiting then. And then Miss Tilley also does walking and trolley tours that provide a history of the downtown and Broad Street area to the public. Holidays like Halloween and Christmas are a perfect time for providing more fun and interactive ways for the center to really engage with the public. Halloween happens to be Miss Tilley's favorite time of the year, and is also time for Haunted on Broad, which is my favorite thing of all time. I had the pleasure of being a tour guide for Haunted on Broad last year. So every year they choose a different part of the downtown area, and they'll choose local legends and ghost stories that do deal specifically with that part of town. And again, I was able to be a tour guide on this past year's. They had visits by the Southern Paranormal Investigators and the Ridge and Valley Storytelling Guild, which told some really great local legends and ghost stories. And then the finale of the tour was them shooting off a Civil War era cannon, which you can imagine terrified so many people, but was a highlight for everybody. I think, though, my favorite part was they had an actress who impersonated Peggy Sneed. So if you guys aren't familiar with, Rome local legends, Peggy Sneed was a woman of the night in Rome, and she ran a brothel there for 40 plus years. Very famous, or infamous, I should probably say. But anyway, that part of the tour was a highlight for me, and I know it was for a lot of the people attending. The tour itself is award-winning. In 2019, it was recognized by Northwest Georgia's Historic High Country Travel Association as the best event for the year. I highly recommend, if you're able to go, excuse me, if you're able to go, highly recommend. But if you're looking for age appropriate, they do have the Hallowed Hauntings, which is a storyteller will tell some more age-appropriate ghost stories for the Halloween season. This year, they are going to start doing the Victorian Christmas trolley tour, so they'll do local bits of holiday history and local lore that will be provided on a guided tour. And then finally, this past year, they also engaged in see if I can get this right, the Going Caching geocaching mega event that was held in Rome. which is basically like a giant scavenger hunt, but they use geolocation to find clues and such. And it really, the downtown area in Rome was hopping that weekend, let me tell you. And so again, it's just a giant scavenger hunt, and items were hidden within the center that patrons had to go and find using geolocation. So looking towards the future of the Rome Area History Center, I know digitization is one of their most important goals that they are looking forward to. I think with the dedication of Ms. Tilley and her staff, they are poised to begin that work for a digital future. They house such a huge variety of artifacts and photographs and documents that they really want to make sure that their collection is maintained and preserved for generations to come. And I think that this project will ensure increased accessibility and searchability of that collection. And I'm hoping it will bring increased attention to the center as well. And then in addition to, digitization, about this pretty often, I know one of her goals is the expansion of the downstairs area to the second level. So this is the second level of the Rome Area History Center. So as you can see, I mean, it's beautiful. It's got the original hardwood floor to ceiling windows that look out onto Broad Street, and that exposed brick. And again, this is the area that gets rented out for weddings and parties. But as you can imagine, that's not exactly the best environment for an archive. So I know that she would like to reclaim that space upstairs and return it to the service of the center and to the archive, with the idea that maybe they could create a archival reading room and research room in that space, and perhaps a space for multimedia events, as well as an expansion of some of the exhibits below that would really highlight the diversity of the Rome area and an interactive timeline of Rome and Floyd County history. And then something else I know is near and dear to Ms. Tilley's heart is creating a quiet space upstairs where if someone gets overwhelmed by the museum, the students come in for tours, they have a place where they can go to be calm. So, you know, in closing, for the Rome Area History Center, I think they stand as a testament really to the heritage and the past of that region of Georgia. Through their exhibits and collections and educational programs, I think they offer an invaluable opportunity to connect with the stories and traditions that have really shaped Rome's identity. Again, I am constantly in awe of Ms. Tilley and her staff and their dedication to the center and to Floyd County. I think they give their all, and it's obvious when you go to visit that they want to make sure you have an extraordinary experience and that everyone that they interact with has a really great time. And I'm really proud to have been a part of that in just even the smallest way. All right, so that's the majority of the presentation about the Rome Area History Center, but I do want to say I'm just a huge advocate of supporting your local historical institutions. I think their role is twofold. I think they play a really vital role, obviously, in preserving our cultural heritage. And I know the Rome Area History Center is just one of many that is working towards constantly educating and supporting their local communities. They're an invaluable resource for students and scholars and towards advancing, you know, historical knowledge and allowing us to learn from our past. And additionally, I think organizations like these foster engagement and pride in bringing people together through exhibits and public programs and community events that really create a sense of belonging, which sometimes I feel is missing in today's society. And so by supporting them, I think that we not only preserve, but we also enhance the quality of life in our communities and strengthen our bonds with one another. So finally, I just wanted to share my contact information here at the Georgia Archives. You know, I mentioned earlier, I'm really committed to implementing innovative outreach programs and forging collaborative partnerships. However, the most important thing is that I understand I cannot do this alone. So I want to invite you to reach out to me. You know, your ideas and collaborations and suggestions are really what going to help us shape the future of the Georgia Archives. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Also follow us on Facebook and YouTube, because we'll be posting about future events there, and we'll also post our Lunch and Learn series and any other events that we have on our YouTube page as well. So I just wanted to say thank you once again for everyone that has come today and anyone who might have watched this on YouTube. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, we can open it up to questions, but that's the majority of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that the archive part of the History Center is not yet open to the public,
Correct.
but so I would be very interested in that research there once they open it up. Do you have any idea when?
I do not. I know that there's something they're constantly working on, is a really large project for them.
Right.
I know that as soon as they do, they have, I think on the previous slide, I listed just their webpage. I know that they would list that as soon as it was open and available for research.
I'm also looking for cemetery, in a particular cemetery that I don't know the name of it.
Okay.
It was obviously around Cave Spring, and because it said my ancestor was buried with his family, you know, and he lived in Cave Spring, and I don't know where that cemetery is. Is there a book or a resource of Cave Spring cemeteries that were locally produced and surveyed?
I'm not sure, but I will find out for you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, specifically just for Cave Spring.
Right.
That area. Okay.
That area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
he had a big obituary in the paper, on the front page of the paper.
No more information. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll find it. We'll find it for you. Yeah.
Not the cemetery she's referring to.
Oh.
You should put in a plug for Myrtle.
Oh, Myrtle Hill. Yes. If you're interested in cemeteries at all, fascinating. Again, one of those things that just kind of stands above Rome. It's at the end of the south end of Broad Street. A lot of the famous Romans are buried there. So it's a really interesting spot. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. It quite easily got its name Myrtle Hill for a reason. Yeah. It is very beautiful. Yes. Yes. Demon and unknown soldier. Yes. Sorry. If I'm correct, I believe it's 10 to 5 Tuesday through Saturday. You may want to just double check me on that, but if I remember the last I saw it, it was 10 to 5 Tuesday through Saturday. Yes. Oh, thank you, Penny.
Do you think the Rome Enterprise would be part of that digitization?
Yes. Yes, it is definitely. It's one of the things that they're most excited about, getting digitized so that everybody can have access to it. And yeah. Other questions? Okay.
What collection or item?
Again, and it was towards the end of my internship there, but when the Rufus Turner collection came in, I was very excited because there's so much information that he gathered besides just those newspapers. There's photographs, and I mean, there's so much about the African American community in that area that the Rome Area History Center really didn't have as much of before. So I was so excited to see that collection being included so that everybody could begin to access it. Yes. Yeah. He sure was. Yes, ma'am.
I was interested in the newspaper,
Mhm.
African American newspaper. I know that the University of Georgia is attempting to collect every newspaper ever published.
Yeah.
They got that one.
I know they've probably got pieces of it, but as far as I understand, they don't have a full collection. This one may be the only one. Yeah. She was asking, she said that the UGA was asking if UGA had any of those newspapers, the Rome Enterprise. And I was just saying that, yeah, I think they may have pieces here and there, but they don't have the full collection as far as I understand it. Well, again, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm really excited. Again, if you guys have any suggestions or ideas, I definitely want to hear them. So thank you.
Well, thank you again for everybody for coming. Make sure you check out our website for upcoming presentations. This is today's program as part of our Lunch and Learn lecture series. It's every month, so we'd love to have you get in the routine of just coming here every month, do some research, watch a presentation, and visit. That's something I really want people to do is while they're here is interact with each other. There's a lot of knowledge in the room. Sometimes our best presentations really generate interactions with the audience, back and forth with the speaker, but really between each other. And you're here because you're interested in the topic. Everybody's interested in the same topic. So encourage you to have the opportunity to talk with each other. Stay in the room the rest of the day if you'd like, and interact. But it's great to have Robin on board. I will point out that Penny Cliff is here, and she is the previous Outreach Archivist. And so it's great to have Penny. She's next door over the Clayton State Master of Archives program. So if anyone has any questions about that program, interested in the program for themselves or people they know, Penny is the contact for that. So to take advantage of her. Would like to, excuse me, as I mentioned before, our exhibit is closed today. It just happens to be in between exhibits. So we're looking forward to the next exhibit opening. Tracy, do you know what the date is? August 5th. It'll be on church records, but we'll provide more information on our website and press releases leading up to that, which is now part of what Robin's responsible for. As she mentioned, if you have ideas for speakers, if you want to speak, just get in touch with Robin and we'll see how we can accommodate that. Some of y'all recognize and we'll be in touch with you to get you to try to speak specifically.
Thank you.
And so just happy to have you here. If you're going to research, about 15 more minutes until reference opens back up, and then you can go back and start your research. Just to explain, we've had budget cuts in previous years, and so one of the things we lost was our second guard. And so because for some reason the guard needs to eat lunch, we don't have anybody that we can open reference over the lunch hour. So if we were given more money from the legislature, we could stay open during the lunch hour. Until then, we're all trying to struggle with this, and so we kick everybody out for lunch. We still have a few minutes. If anybody has any questions they may have of me or Robin about anything that's going on, about our upcoming events. The next big one will be in October. It's our Georgia Archives and Genealogy Day. We really have a big focus on genealogy. Kayla has some of that planned. We're still planning the last few pieces of that. Do we have a date? October 7th. It's always in October. The date moves around a little. We encourage you to come. It'll be a day-long event about genealogy. And then after that, in February, we'll have our African American Genealogy and History event, which is a 3-day event. We have grant funds again for that from Clayton County Tourism Authority. And so that's going to be a great event. Yes, ma'am.
Is your genealogy program focused entirely on Georgia genealogy, or if you're chasing info someplace else, can you help?
So some of it, and it'll depend, and I'll let Kayla speak more to the specific speakers, but some of it is just how to do genealogy. And then there's a Georgia focus, but is there anything so far, Kayla?
Themselves to out-of-state research, such as adoption records, DNA while we don't have programs on the specific records out of state, we do have programs on specific types of records, broad types of records, and
And if you have specific questions, I encourage you go into reference and talk to the archivist there. If each one of them kind of has a little bit of a specialty, and so maybe talk, and they may put you in touch with someone who can really help you with your specific question. And we do have in our library collection some of the library books that deal with the surrounding states. Any other questions? All right, well, I will let you go about your day, and really, again, appreciate y'all for coming in and look forward to seeing y'all again in the future.